So we have some basic categories for microorganisms, and we're going to go through all of these during the semester, but just to give you a basic overview, we have bacteria, probably the one we're going to spend the most time on. This is a prokaryote that has peptidoglycan in their cell wall and a circular chromosome. So they have a cell wall on the outside that gives them rigidity and framework for their cell. And they have a genetic code that is circular. So I have circular chromosomes, unlike our own that are linear. Another microorganism is archaea. They're also prokaryotes. They're typically seen as being very primitive and living in harsh environments. So you might find them in salt marshes, in polar ice caps. I've worked on one that is in the Yellowstone pools that have lots of sulfur and are very hot. Any of those would fall in the category of archaea. Fungi, now these can be macroscopic, meaning you don't need a microscope to look at them, or microscopic, and they're eukaryotic. So these would have a nucleus, they'd have membrane-bound organelles, and they're pretty diverse in that they can be unicellular. So things like my bread yeast that I have in my kitchen is unicellular. It's one cell living all on its own. And there's some that are multicellular. Things like mushrooms would be macroscopic. And then there's some that are microscopic and kind of living colonies. Another single-celled organism is protozoa. So protozoa is a single-celled eukaryotic organism. So again, they're going to have all of these organelles like a nucleus. They might have a flagella to help with mobility, but they're single-celled. These ones you might have seen in Bio 2. They often are seen in pond water or freshwater lakes. Another type of microorganism is a helminth. This is a multicellular animal, so they're eukaryotic, and their juvenile stage is microscopic, so like the eggs, the very early juveniles, and the adults are macroscopic. You may have heard these referred to as like tapeworms. Okay, so tapeworms, they'll lay eggs that are microscopic, but the actual tapeworm itself can be clearly seen with the naked eye. Two other types of microorganisms. These are ones, back to our other discussion, that may or may not be alive. Okay, so viruses are microscopic, can't be seen without some assistance from a microscope. They're acellular, meaning that they don't tick all the boxes to be life. They can't reproduce on their own. And they're composed of nucleic acids surrounded by a protein coat. So you can see here in pink, we have our nucleic acids, whether it's DNA or RNA, and then they have proteins out here in the icosahedral geometric shape, maybe with spike proteins on the outside, but they need a host to help them reproduce. Prions, the smallest of all of them we've discussed today, are misfolded proteins. Okay, so you can see here, if we compare 100 nanometers for a virus, they're 10 times smaller. Okay, so much, much smaller, misfolded proteins, and they can cause neurodegenerative diseases in humans. Often they will attack the brain, and they're not living. They can't reproduce on their own. They can't respond to stimulus. They're just proteins that got folded incorrectly. Okay, so when we talk about microbes, we often will think about how connected are they. When terms that come up are things like the tree of life or the web of life. Okay, so I have a picture demonstrating that here. You can see the tree of life showing the three main domains in our purple, orange, and blue. So these are our big categories of organisms. We have bacteria and archaea that are prokaryotes, and eukarya that is a eukaryote, meaning it has a well-defined nucleus, membrane-bound organelles. It does mitotic cell division. And if we come back over here with the prokaryotes, they're much smaller. They aren't going to have a nucleus, no organelles, very much more primitive structures than eukaryotes. You'll notice that viruses and prions are missing from this tree. Again, that's because they're not considered cells. They're not considered to be living things. Therefore, they get left off of the tree of life. Now, all three of these are domains. And you'll notice down here in black, last common ancestor, or LUCA often is how it's referred to. This comes up a lot in evolutionary biology, the idea that all of these at one point were connected.